about various writing styles, tools at the writer's disposal, forms of communicating with the reader. All that is something that I've been alluding to in the past few videos and did so in some of the earlier ones. This time I would like to focus a bit more on something specific, which is implied meaning, leaving it to the reader so that he can figure it out by himself and or make his or her own headcanon, finish up the writer's thought, or even arrive at a completely different conclusion than the writer would, versus literally spelling it out to the reader, leaving no space for interpretation, making absolutely sure that I got the message across as intended, and how I feel about these polar opposites, different approaches to setting things into motion and setting up the metaphorical dialogue with the reader. These are definitely things that I will have to keep in mind all the time when writing a story, regardless of its complexity. Because, on one hand, I don't want to feel like a child being talked down to by the writer. On the other hand, as the writer, I have to make sure that the story stays cohesive and that the writing stays natural and comprehensible. Then there is also the element of the writer explaining things within the setting to the reader, when I might end up making my characters look dumb because they ask questions that they definitely should know the answers to. They go over things that should be completely natural to them within the setting, point out things that are perfectly normal for their world, for the people within. Ultimately, though, I probably am going to prioritize myself as a reader, making sure that I leave some space for the reader's personal feelings and opinions without disrupting the core ideas, the key principles behind the story and its characters. Or, well, I'm going to attempt that to the very best of my abilities, hopefully striking a balance between properly articulating what I want to say and avoiding coddling the reader too much, because I do feel that me in the real world is way too used to being spoon fed and thus should occasionally exert myself as long as my absolutes are being adhered to, the story itself being enjoyable, and it avoiding all the pitfalls that my fragile man-child ego just simply cannot handle anymore. So again, ending it without a closure and moving on to the greener pastures of the Rapid Arrow stories. A huge event is being planned, a grand sledge race, officially organized compared to the one that we had witnessed a decently long time ago. This one is being held on the other side. That is a name. Everyone can participate, so all the boys and the girls living there flock to the organizer staff with their application forms. The only requirement is that the participants help with building the track and the obstacles, because it truly is going to be a grand spectacle, and it is this chapter's focus to build the track, make the proverbial pitfalls exciting and testing enough, but also safe for the racers. And as we see huge crowds clamoring for the applications, creating waves that the official person hasn't seen in all 40 years of his service, as the secretary of the club called the other side. It's both a place and a name for this club, by the way. And our heroes are obviously going to join as well. Speedy even gets a message from his father that one of his friends is willing to lend them a steerable sledge, which sends Speedy into an actual frenzy, although it is going to need some work, or a degree of repairs will be required to make the sledge trackworthy. Their new vehicle is waiting for them in the attic, still covered in webs, so they bring it back, do the maintenance, and then we see a long line of people equipped with shovels, and it's time to actually build the track. The efforts are being supervised by the organizers to make sure that the corridor is inclined enough so that the sledges can turn safely, that there are protective walls where needed. There will be a non-negligible step on the track as well, forcing either a short flight or braking, and a rather long tunnel, low enough so that the participants will have to cover themselves. And then it's finally the day of the race, and on the board with all the teams participating, there are even some familiar names that we have met during the adventure so far. And for now, Spark is in the lead with the time of 76 seconds, which is nowhere near the time of the test drive the Rapid Arrows had conducted earlier that day. And then it's their turn to prove themselves against the adversity. Mirek at the front steering, with Speedy at the very back. They flawlessly overcome the first turn. Then the slightly delayed Speedy asks if he is supposed to brake before the big step when they are already flying over it. Him being in control of the brake that their sledge is equipped with might be slightly concerning, but everything ends well, at least for now. Then the tunnel that they also managed to ride through flawlessly, but then they get slightly greedy with the incoming infamous turn, the most dangerous of them all, where they decide to stop braking to try and hoard a little bit of time, and that costs them because their sledge overturns, and that loses them the race. Or maybe not, because the person overseeing that section of the track tells them to quickly get up and finish the race, that he's not going to tell on them that they capsized. But that wouldn't be the Rapid Arrows we know, to try and cheat their way to victory. So despite their disappointment, they properly report their sledge as unsuccessful, and with this ends the racing chapter, and for now marks the end of Winter Adventures, and we see them chilling above the road, admiring a car being parked right underneath them, although Speedy does feel the need to remark that their own handcrafted vehicle was much better. But then they spot two men suspiciously wandering around the car. The two men plan the heist. One will grab the coat, the other one will take the bag, completely disregarding the rapid arrows above them as harmless, at least to their operation. Well, the Rapidaros decides to prove them wrong, and when the two men start running with their loot, they are right behind them, attempting to apprehend the criminals. They even run past a couple of a man and woman whom the thieves ran past by, who did nothing to stop them, and when questioned why they hadn't bothered, they try to excuse it by saying that they could have been killed by the criminals, which is fair, but the Rapidaros know no fear and continue their pursuit. The robbers realize that they are almost onto them, so they decide to split up and throw the coat at the boys as a distraction. Redcap catches it and is going to stay behind, while the rest of the club will continue chasing the man with the bag. They do try to rouse the public to join the attempts at apprehending the escaping criminal element, but it is not needed. Speedy lives up to his name and with a brilliant flying catch grabs the man by the neck, drags him down. Mirek gets the bag, and the only future waiting the wannabe rogue is the nearby police station. This is where I'm going to stop. Didn't really say much. Intro was inconclusive, but it needed to be said, and more rapid arrows in the next video.